For most of human history, one single chore stole an entire day of a woman's week. Not a metaphor, an actual day, hauling water, building a fire, boiling it, scrubbing fabric raw against stone, or wood, or her own knuckles. And then, in the span of 1 century, that day disappeared. This is the story of the machine that did it. A machine so ordinary that you probably don't think about it at all. It sits quietly in your home right now, but behind its metal door is one of the strangest, most contested, most quietly revolutionary stories in the history of technology. By the end of this, you will never look at your washing machine the same way again. Here is what most people don't know. The first patent for a washing machine wasn't filed by an engineer or a scientist, it was filed by an American man in 1797, and his name has almost vanished from history, buried in a fire that erased the very records that proved he existed. Here is what else most people don't know. For decades, the electric washing machine was quite literally a death trap sitting in people's kitchen. And here is the strangest part of all, the machine that finally worked. The one that changed everything. Arrived just 2 years before the world went into war. And its factories were converted overnight to build fighter plane parts instead. Water, fire, war, somehow all three shaped the history of clean laundry. Let's go back to the beginning. Before there was any machine at all, washing clothes was one of the oldest and hardest tasks in human civilization. Ancient Romans used a cleaning agent made from animal fat and ash, a primitive soap. Some also soaked laundry in fermented urine because the ammonia in it helped lift grease and stains. This method, strange as it sounds today, persisted for centuries in parts of Europe. For most ordinary families, though, washing meant a river, a rock, and raw effort. Clothes were pounded against stones or rubbed against rough spaces to loosen dirt. In many cultures, washing day became a communal event, women gathering at rivers or shared wash houses, turning grueling labor into a rare space for conversation and community. But make no mistake, it was brutal work. Water had to be carried, often long distances. It had to be heated over open fire. In heavy pots, soap, when available, was harsh, often lye based, damaging to skin. Then came the scrubbing, then the wringing by hand to remove water, then the drying, then the ironing. A single wash they could consume 10 to 12 hours, and in most households it happened weekly without fail for the entire adult life of the woman responsible for it. By the 1700s, some inventors began imagining a better way. In 1767, a German scientist named Jacob Christian Schaffer designed one of the earliest known washing devices, a hand-cranked box that agitated clothes inside it. It wasn't widely adopted, but it planted an idea. What if a machine, not a human body, could do the agitating? Then, in 1797, an American named Nathaniel Briggs received a US patent for a washing device. It is often cited as the first American washing machine patent. Frustratingly, historians can't tell you much more about Briggs himself or exactly what his device looked like. A fire at the US Patent Office in 1836 destroyed many of the earliest patent records. A piece of invention history was quite literally burned away. Through the early to mid 1800s, more inventors joined in. In 1851, an American named James King patented a hand-cranked drum washer that used water pressure to help agitate the cloths, a real step toward the drum design we would recognize today. In 1858, Hamilton Smith patented a rotary version of a similar concept. Around the same time, a Illinois businessman named William Blackstone reportedly built a simple wooden washing machine as a birthday gift for his wife. A story often repeated in washing machine histories, though, like many origin stories, the precise details are difficult to verify with certainty. These were still manual machines, no motors, no electricity, just a hand crank, a drum, and mechanical advantage instead of pure human muscle. This saved effort, but not necessarily time. Someone still had to stand there and turn the crank over and over for the length of the wash. Religious communities also played a role here. Groups like Shakers began building and selling large wooden washing machines for a small scale commercial use, refining mechanical laundry technology outside the home entirely in shared or communal wash houses. In 1876, Margaret Colvin patented the Triumph rotary washer in Philadelphia, one of the notable inventions credited to a woman in this early mechanical era. The real turning point came at the dawn of the 20th century, when electricity started reaching into ordinary homes. In 1908, a machine called the Thor was introduced by the Hurley Machine Company of Chicago, credited to an engineer named Alva J. Schiffer. It is widely described as the first electric powered washing machine sold commercially. Though this claim isn't entirely uncontested, some historical accounts point to a rival claim from the 1900 washing machine company, and there are unverified stories about a Ford Motor Company employee inventing an electric washer even earlier. Given the timeline of when Ford was founded, that particular story appears unlikely to be accurate. What we can say with more confidence is that the Thor was among the very first electric washers to reach the commercial market, and it opened the door for the ones that followed. And that machine was far from safe. The motor set exposed, unprotected from water, short circuits were common. Electric shocks were common. Imagine standing over a tub of water, your hands wet next to an exposed electric motor. Washing day for a brief and dangerous period became something closer to a hazard than a convenience. Despite the risk, adoption grew. Maytag introduced its own wooden tub washer in 1907. The company that would eventually become Whirlpool began producing electric wringer washers by 1911. Other manufacturers followed. These early electric machines still used a wringer, two rollers that squeezed water out of wet cloths by hand feeding them through. It worked, but it was dangerous in its own right. Getting fingers, hair, or clothing caught in a wringer was a real and recorded household hazard for decades. For nearly 30 more years, washing machines required constant human attention. You had to fill the tub, you had to drain it, you had to move clothes to the wringer yourself. The machine helped, but it did not run itself. Then, in 1937, a company called Bendix Home Appliances, a subsidiary of Avco, introduced something genuinely new. The first fully automatic domestic washing machine. This one machine could fill, wash, rinse 3 times and spin dry, all without a person standing over it. You loaded the clothes, you set the dial, you added soap, that was it. It looked by design almost like a small car, a rounded metal body with a round glass porthole in front. So you could actually watch your laundry tumble inside that porthole. designed, borrowed, styling, cues directly from automobile design of the era, and it helped establish the visual language that would define home appliances. The smooth white metal casing that later gave rise to the term white goods. But this machine had real problems too. It had no drum suspension, meaning its violent spin cycle could make the entire machine physically walk across the floor. Some had to be bolted down, and it was expensive. Expensive enough that at first it remained mostly a luxury item for wealthier households. Then came history's interruption. By 1941, Bendix has sold 330,000 of these automatic machines in the United States. Genuine commercial success, and the World War II arrived. Appliance factories across America converted to wartime production. Washing machine manufacturing simply stopped. No new machines rolled off the line for 5 years. When the war ended in 1945, production resumed in 1946 and it met an extraordinary wave of demand. Families who had saved wartime wages, unable to spend them on consumer goods for years, were finally ready to buy. In 1947, an improved Bendix Deluxe model reached American consumers, and General Electric released its own competing top-loading automatic machine that same year. In 1952, General Electric introduced the first spin dryer, pushing the category further. By 1951, sales of fully automatic washers had overtaken all the Ringer-style machines in the United States for the first time, a symbolic crossing point marking the automatic washer as the new standard, not the exception. Here is the part of the full story that matters most, and it is not really about machines at all, it is about time. In the 1800s and into the early 1900s, a woman doing laundry by hand might spend a full day every single week on this one task alone: hauling water, building fire, scrubbing, wringing, hanging, ironing. By the 1950s, with an automatic washer, that same task could be finished in a couple of hours, largely unattended. Some economists and historians argue this had consequences far beyond convenience. The economist Jeremy Greenwood has argued that household technologies like the washing machine played a meaningful role in freeing married women from time-consuming domestic labor, contributing to a rise in women entering the paid workforce across the 20th century. It is worth being careful here. Historians don't all agree on how large a role appliances played compared to other social and economic forces of the era, such as wartime labor shortages, changing cultural attitudes, and shifts in the broader economy. This is a debated point, not a settled fact, and the honest version of the story holds that tension rather than flattening it. It is also worth noting an odd historical irony. Laundry is one of the very few household tasks that had for a time moved out of the home into commercial laundries and shared wash houses, only to move back into the home once the automatic washing machine made it practical again. Some historians note that advertising of the era leaned heavily on the image of the devoted, efficient housewife to sell this return to home based labor, which complicates any simple story of pure liberation. Regardless of how that debate settles, the practical reality is undeniable. A chore that once defined an entire day of a woman's week now runs quietly in the background of modern life, invisible, uneventful, and almost completely taken for granted. The porthole door you have probably never thought twice about carries almost 200 years of human effort behind it. Patents lost to fire, dangerous experiments with electricity, a war that stopped the factories, and a debate about liberation that historians still haven't fully settled. If this kind of story, the hidden history behind the objects you use every day, is something you want more of, subscribe and let us know in the comments. Here is what we could explore next: the hidden history of the refrigerator and how it rewrote the entire architecture of the modern kitchen, or the story of soap itself going back to ancient Mesopotamia, or the rise of the laundromat and how self service laundry quietly reshaped American cities. Tell us which one you want first. We will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.